Hi, I'm Ryan, and on this episode of the Ludicrum, I'm going to talk about family games, or games you can play with your family without losing your mind. One of the challenges that I had previously was that I would have to play a game like Candyland with my kids, and it really wasn't much fun. And oftentimes games that we play with our kids, we play with them to appease them, more so than to actually have fun. Maybe that's not fair. But anyway, what I've done here is assembled 10 of the games that I play with my family. My daughter is 6 and my son is 12. And we all have fun while playing. And that's really the objective, is that to have a game that you can play and everyone is going to have fun, regardless of their age and whether they win or lose. And that's really been one of the challenges of playing games, is that you find a game that sort of strikes that balance where it's not too competitive, it doesn't require a lot of reading or heavy math or complex theoretical strategic thinking, but you can still have fun. And these 10 games, I will talk about each of them in turn a little bit and describe how the game plays and whether or why I think it's appropriate to play with children. So let's just get started. First up is Zombie Dice by Steve Jackson Games. Zombie Dice is a press your luck die rolling game for an unlimited number of players. And I don't know if there's an age recommendation on here, but it works for my daughter. The zombie theme may scare some people, but I wouldn't let it do so. My daughter is 6 and she thinks it's hilarious. So it works just fine. Very easy to explain the rules. It's portable, it's inexpensive, and you can bring it with you places. One of the reasons that we like this game so much is we can pick it up, throw it in a jacket pocket, and take it out to a restaurant or something to keep the kids occupied before the food comes. Really fun as a filler game at board game events as well. Highly recommended for families, Zombie Dice. Ghost Blitz is a matching game with a twist. It's really kind of fun because it has these 5 little wooden pieces and a deck of cards. And you shuffle the cards and flip over the top card and try to figure out what matches among the wooden pieces with that card. And you're trying to match colors and shapes, or what doesn't match. And that's really the challenge and what's interesting about this game. My 6-year-old rather, she was 5 when we first started playing this game, picked this game up quicker than I did, and that's probably not a surprise to some of my friends, but anyway, this is a really fun game for families and for adults as well, because it really is kind of warps your head in a little bit in some ways, and it's lots of fun. It's inexpensive again, which is really a hallmark of a lot of these games. They're not too expensive, and it's great to give as a gift. Next up is a game that probably doesn't need a lot of introduction. It's King of Tokyo by Aiello Games and famous designer Richard Garfield, creator of Magic the Gathering, Robo Rally, and other fantastic and well-loved games. This game has won a lot of awards, and it's well deserved. I guess it's a die rolling game in which players take on the role of these giant monsters in these kind of large cardboard cutout standees. Very easy to explain the rules of this game. It's beautiful to look at, lots of fun, has a sense of humor, and players are taking on a role of a monster trying to invade Tokyo and become the king of Tokyo, either by being the most famous monster or the last monster standing. Lots of fun for all ages. I recently played this with a group of adults and we had a blast, and I play this with my kids and have just as much fun. So yeah, King of Tokyo is not going to be a hard game to find. It's really a great game for families of all ages and grown-ups. Highly recommended. Next up is The Resistance by Indie Boards and Cards. It's a game for 5 to 10 players. It takes about 30 minutes to play, and those of you who are familiar with this game may be surprised to see this game on a list of games for families, particularly a family that has a 6-year-old. However, this game is my 6-year-old daughter's absolute all-time favorite game. In this game, it's a social bluffing game. So you take on the role of either a spy, who are the bad guys, or a resistance member, and the resistance members are in the majority. So part of the goal of this game is to sort of suss out the spies so that you can complete your objectives. Why this is so much fun with my daughter is that because she's really not a very good bluffer. And that's a lot of fun because she spends half the time giggling when she's a spy, and everybody knows that she's a spy, but somehow she still manages to win occasionally. And it baffles the mind, but it's a lot of fun. And she asks to play this game all the time whenever we have company. We can't play it on our own because it requires 5 players. So it doesn't get played as often as Lily would like. But yeah, The Resistance is a fantastic game. I recommend it for everyone, really. Next up is No Thanks from Z-Man Games. This is a game for 3 to 5 players, takes about 20 minutes to play, and it is one of my personal favorite pocket games. It is a game in which players have one choice to make on their turn, either to take a card or to place a chip. The thing is, nobody wants any of the cards because the cards give you points, and at the end of the game, the player with the lowest number of points wins the game. So, that being said, one of the caveats of this game for playing with particularly young children is that you have to have some understanding of numbers. The box says that this is a game for ages 13 and up, but my daughter, who is 6, can play this game. She probably doesn't win it very often, but she does have fun while playing. It's a great little game, highly recommended just because you can throw it in your pocket. It's inexpensive. It's about $10, and we bring this to restaurants or when we're going over to friends' houses who, maybe they aren't gamers, but something to do on an evening with family and friends. Highly recommended. Again, one of my favorite little games to play. Maybe a great stocking stuffer. No thanks. Next up is Takenoko by Antoine Bauza, and there is another game in this list by the same designer. Both are beautiful, and certainly this is no exception. It is for 2 to 4 players, takes about 45 minutes to play. I would give it a little bit more, like an hour, maybe a little bit more, especially if you're playing with young children or if it's your first game, because you have to explain the rules, although usually that always takes longer anyway. Strategically, this is probably the most complicated of the games in this list, especially for young children, but it's not too difficult to understand. There is no reading required or math, but you sort of have to understand the concept of matching the pieces you have and making strategic decisions. And I think that may be a little bit challenging for some kids, but that's a good thing. My 6-year-old daughter really enjoys this game, and I think it's fun to encourage our children to sort of think outside the box, and that's what a good game can do for us. It's not a competitive game. I mean, you're trying to win the game, but one of the things that I think is important about playing games with young children, and it's true of all of these games, is that games that are really intensely competitive maybe are not great for kids because sometimes kids don't want to lose or they don't know how to take losing properly. And while I think it's important to teach our kids how to lose gracefully, putting them in really highly competitive situations, especially sometimes with siblings, maybe isn't a great idea when you're trying to have a fun family game night. So Takenoko falls neatly into the enough competitive that it's kind of fun and interesting, but it's fun to play this game regardless of who wins. I always have fun with this game, and so does my family. Takenoko, love this game. Highly recommended for families and for grown-ups. Next up is Wits and Wagers, a game for 4 or more players. It takes about 25 minutes to play. This is a wagering trivia game in which somebody asks a question, so that the person who's asking the questions or reading the questions out loud has to be able to read. That's one caveat for young families, but usually there's someone in the group, even if your young children can't read, they can understand the questions, hopefully. But one of the great things about this game, and one of the reasons why I can recommend this to families, is that you don't have to know the answer to these questions. You just have to be able to guess which of the answers that all of the other players write down, and they're all numbers, so you just have to be able to write a number, which is the most correct out of these answers that are there without going over, and you're wagering on which one it is, and the winner gets some chips. I will recommend, if you do want to try this game, and even if you already have it, that maybe you might want to consider picking up some actual poker chips. I bought these just for this game, and it makes it tremendously fun. First of all, you may run out of chips with this game, which I found when we played an extended game and kept going. We didn't have enough chips. This will give you plenty enough chips, and it does make it a lot more fun. Wits and Wagers, fantastic, especially as a party game. It doesn't take long to play. Even young children can play it, and it says 4 or more players on here. My kids and I, the 3 of us, play this all the time together and with just 3, and it's just as much fun. You really should pick this game up. Fantastic game. It's won tons of awards. Up next is Sorrow. This is a game for 2 to 8 players. It says 15 to 20 minutes to play. I would say that's accurate. It could even be faster than that in some cases. In Sorrow, players are building a board and sliding their piece along the path. And each turn, you take one of the tiles that are in your hand, you have a number, and you place it on the board. The objective is to be the last player standing because you don't want to slide your piece off the board. So each time a new tile is placed, it creates a new sort of puzzle to sort of figure out where everyone's going, and you can't bump into other people's pawns, and you don't want to send yourself off the edge of the board while at the same time trying to send others off the board. It sounds strategically complex. It really isn't. It's lots of fun, and it's really kind of a unique game and quite a beautiful game, both in the way that it's designed and plays, and just all of the packaging is really well thought out. Easy to explain game. It's not hard to play, and it goes really quickly, and really a fantastic filler game to sort of just bring out in between other games, maybe while you're making coffee or grabbing snacks or whatever. And really, players of all ages. The game says 8 and up, but again, I wouldn't be recommending it if my kids didn't play it, including my 6-year-old. Sorrow, there's also a Sorrow of the Seas, which I have not yet played, but both games I'm sure are just as exciting, and yeah, I really recommend this game. Next up is Jamaica. This really is one of my personal favorite games from a thematic standpoint. In this game, the players are pirates, and they're racing their individual pirate ships around the island, and at the same time sort of having pirate battles and collecting gold and gunpowder and food to sort of survive and get around the race. And it's really kind of fun, and is probably the most like a traditional kind of Monopoly style board game of all of the games here, in the sense that you have a die rolling component, although in this case the dice are rolled, and then the active player will choose which number to come first and take the action for each of those individually, and all of the players have to use that same die roll. But in each player gets to choose sort of how they allocate the points on those dice. It doesn't take long to explain how to play this game. It's really beautiful. All of the components are fantastic, and I think that's really something that's important to note for games for children in particular, is that kids are obviously engaged by things that are bright and colorful and look and sort of pull you into the theme. And I think of all the games that I own, perhaps this is one of the strongest thematically. And it all really holds together very well. It's fun, and particularly if your family plays a lot of traditional board games and haven't ventured into sort of some of the more complex Euro style or modern American board games, this is a great introduction to those games while maintaining a lot of the same concepts from the more traditional American board games. Highly recommended. My 12-year-old son particularly loves this game, as does my younger daughter as well. But this game is just a ton of fun to play. It doesn't take very long, and if you can find it, it could be a challenge. It's a little bit challenging to find in Canada, then I really recommend that you pick it up. Next up is Tokaido, another game from designer Antoine Bauza. This is another Asian themed game. In this case, players are travelers on a journey. And that really sums up what this game is all about. It's really not about the destination, as in who wins or loses, but kind of what you do along the way. It's a set collection game in which players are moving their pawn point to point along this road, passing restaurants and souvenir shops and beautiful vistas, and you're collecting things depending on where you stop. Each of those things gives you victory points along the way. It really is simple strategically, but that's really one of its charms, is that it's not complicated. It doesn't make you think a whole lot, but it's kind of fun because all of the pieces and the cards that you're collecting are really nicely designed. It's kind of beautiful, and it's a relaxing game. And so many games on our shelves, if we're board game collectors like I am, really don't give you a chance to relax. You're constantly thinking and planning and figuring out what your next move is and making sure your opponents aren't sort of creeping up on you. Where this game really, it's not like that. It's enjoyable to play. It's competitive, but not really, and which is great for young children. It doesn't require reading, some basic understanding of numbers, like coins in the single digits, so it's really not that difficult to play. It takes maybe 40 minutes, 45, could be even less, depending on how quickly you play through it, but really a beautiful game, and I recommend it, particularly for families who are looking for a sort of lighter game that's fun to play. So thanks for watching this roundup. The 10 games that I like to play with my family. There are others, obviously, but these are the choices that I made for this group because I thought it sort of represented a number of categories. I really like to hear some feedback on this video in particular because I love collecting games, obviously, and I love to introduce new games to my children that will engage and entertain them, as well as me at the same time, which can be a challenge for some games. So thanks for watching, and look forward to hearing your feedback.